Have you ever wondered how close you've come to danger without even realizing it? At Shivering Vault, we take you there, one story at a time. But before you drift off, consider liking this video, commenting where you're watching from and at what time, and subscribing to keep these chilling stories coming. Now, let's dive into these unsettling tales. This was late last year, November. I live just outside of Dallas in a town most people drive through without noticing. I work in IT, mostly remote, staring at two monitors for 9 to 10 hours a day. Mia, my girlfriend, she works in healthcare, ER shifts at one of the busier hospitals downtown. We're both good at what we do, but man, that stretch of the year, it was brutal. Just constant pressure from clients on my end, and for her, back-to-back shifts with patients coming in nonstop. We were just fried, you know what I mean? I don't even think we were talking that much by the end of that month. Not because anything was wrong between us, but just because we didn't have the energy. So when she suggested a trip, just the two of us away from everything, I jumped on it. We didn't want anything fancy, no hotels or cities or overpriced rental cabins with hot tubs. We just wanted quiet, real quiet. Mia had read about this place on an old hiking forum. Timber Hollow, I'd never heard of it. I still haven't found it listed on any official park sites or anything like that. It's just a patch of woods somewhere in East Texas. The people in that forum made it sound like this hidden gem. No campgrounds, no hookups, no crowds, just you, your gear, and trees in every direction. It sounded perfect. We rented a small RV through one of those peer-to-peer apps. Just the guy who owned it was chill, even gave us a little rundown on how to use everything. Generator, water tank, propane stove, backup lights. I took notes. Mia packed food and blankets. We were going to be out there for 3 nights, Thursday to Sunday. We hit the road early Thursday morning. The first leg of the trip was normal. Paved roads, fast food stops, the usual. Once we passed through the last actual town, I don't even remember the name, just a gas station and a Dollar General, the roads got narrow, then gravel, then full-on dirt, like someone had driven through once and made tracks, and that was it. The trees started thickening on both sides. It felt like we were being swallowed. The trees got too close together, everything dimmed, and it got quiet. I didn't notice it right away. You sort of ease into it. But I remember at one point I realized I couldn't hear anything from outside. No birds, no bugs, no wind. Just the tires crunching over the dirt and that dull hum from the RV's engine. Mia was looking out the passenger window, elbow propped on the armrest, just quietly taking it all in. I asked if she was okay, and she nodded, said it felt untouched. She was right. Eventually we found a clearing, just like the forum thread described. Not marked, no signage, just a flat area about 30 feet across. Room for the RV and a small fire pit someone had built out of stones. The ground was packed dirt and pine needles, not muddy. The air smelled like sap and something colder, like the scent of water that hadn't moved in a long time. I parked, we both stepped out and just stood there for a minute, listening, breathing, letting that quiet sink in. It was peaceful. It really was. We set up the chairs, got a fire going, made some basic food, canned soup, sandwiches. We weren't exactly survival experts, we just wanted simple. That night, Thursday, was probably one of the best nights we've had together in a long time. We watched the stars. There were so many. I didn't even know the sky could look like that. No planes, no smog, no street lights, just this huge silent dome of black speckled with a million tiny lights. We talked about stupid stuff, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. We went to bed around 11. I remember double-checking the locks on the RV doors out of habit. We'd seen 0 other cars or people, but it still felt smart to be cautious. And that was that. We slept fine. Nothing weird. Just real rest. But the second night was something else entirely. Friday started off great, actually. We woke up late, a little stiff from the RV mattress, but still in good spirits. Mia made coffee on the little stove while I fumbled around outside, trying to get a better fire going than I had the night before. The sky was overcast, pale gray, but it wasn't cold yet. Just cool enough to need a hoodie. We took a short hike, nothing crazy. Just wandered off one of the foot trails leading from the clearing. Trees were tall, spaced kind of irregularly. The pine needles were thick on the ground, made it real quiet when we walked. We didn't see a single person, not even footprints. Just deer tracks here and there. That trail went maybe a half-mile in and curved around a dried-up creek bed. Felt like no one had been out there in years. We spent the afternoon reading and napping and doing absolutely nothing. That was the whole point. As the sun started to drop, it got colder. Not freezing, just crisp. We made another fire. I grilled some sausages on a pan we'd brought, and she made those instant mashed potatoes you mix with boiling water. We turned in early that night around 9:30. Then, somewhere around 11, I'm not sure of the exact time, it happened. 3 knocks. Sharp. Fast. Right on the metal door of the RV. We both sat up instantly. My heart was already hammering before my brain even processed what I'd heard. Mia clicked on the little reading light above the bed. I whispered, "Did you hear that?" She nodded, barely. I got up slowly. The RV floor was cold against my feet. I stepped toward the front, crouching a bit. The curtains were drawn over the main window, but I could see the shadow of someone standing outside, right at the door, not moving. I leaned toward the peephole. It was a woman. She looked wrong. Not in a horror movie way or anything. Just wrong for the situation. No shoes. Her legs were bare and her arms were crossed tight over her chest like she was freezing. She was rocking back and forth just slightly, head tilted downward, and her hair, dark, wet-looking, hung over her face like she hadn't brushed it in days. I couldn't hear her clearly, but she was saying something, over and over, quietly, like a chant or a plea. I stood there frozen, watching her through the peephole, my pulse thudding in my ears. Mia's voice snapped me out of it. "Don't open it, Adam. Don't open the door." "I'm not," I whispered back, raising my hands like she could see me. "I'll call 911, she said, grabbing her phone. The signal was barely there, flickering between one bar and nothing. She stepped toward the rear of the RV to get better reception. I stayed by the door. That's when the woman stopped rocking. She turned her head slightly and looked directly into the peephole. I flinched. I know she couldn't see me. The peephole is dark from the outside, but it felt like she was staring through it. Then, without a word, she just turned and ran into the woods. Not a stumble, not a panic, just gone. I opened my mouth to speak, but couldn't think of anything to say. Mia was still on the phone, whispering into it, trying to explain where we were using GPS coordinates. She kept glancing at me like she was waiting for me to say something, but I didn't. I couldn't. We locked all the doors, closed every curtain, turned off every light, and waited. We kept expecting the sound of the sheriff's truck, maybe the crunch of tires on the gravel road, but nothing came. Time dragged. At one point, I walked toward the back window, peeled the curtain just a little. There was movement, not the woman. A figure, a man, moving slowly past the rear of the RV. I only saw him for a second, but he had a flashlight, red-filtered, barely visible. Just enough to keep from tripping, not enough to be seen from a distance. I dropped the curtain fast and backed away. "There's someone out there," I whispered to Mia. "Not her, a guy." Mia's mouth dropped open, but she didn't make a sound. That's when the power went out. Like someone had flipped a switch. The fan shut off. The fridge made a dying hum. Everything cut. Pitch black. Mia gasped. I felt her grab my arm. We didn't move. I reached for my phone, turned on the flashlight, but kept it pointed down at the floor. I didn't want to give away where we were inside. "Get in the front," I whispered. "Stay low." We crawled forward, hands and knees. I grabbed the tire iron from under the front seat, the same one the RV guy had shown me during the walkthrough. It was cold and heavy. Outside, the RV creaked. The sound of weight shifting, someone stepping onto the small back bumper, the soft tap of tools against metal. They were trying to force the back latch. I motioned for Mia to keep down. She ducked behind the driver's seat, clutching the pepper spray. I crouched beside the kitchenette, tire iron in hand, heart pounding in my throat. Then the scratching started again, a dragging sound across the siding, slow, patient, like someone marking where the seams were. Testing the structure, we stayed frozen. Every muscle in my body was coiled, waiting for whatever was coming. And then, crack. The back door snapped open. Hinges groaned. A cold draft swept through the RV, and I heard him step inside. The air inside the RV changed the moment that door gave way. I didn't move. Mia didn't either. I could hear her breathing, shallow, panicked, trying to be silent, but not quite managing it. I was crouched by the little stove, tire iron clutched so tight my knuckles felt like stone. The small light from my phone cast a faint glow across the floor, just enough to catch the edge of a boot as it stepped inside. Heavy, quiet, controlled. The man didn't speak, didn't make a sound, actually. He didn't yell. He didn't run. He moved, slow and deliberate. He paused after each step like he was listening for us. He passed the bathroom first, then the bunks, both empty, then stopped. He was just a few feet from me now, maybe 5. I could hear the leather of his gloves creak as he tightened his grip on something metal. A crowbar, I think. I held my breath. Every inch of me was screaming to do something, to jump out or scream or hit him or just run, but I couldn't. My body wouldn't move. Then, flash. Red and blue light poured through the windows. It was so sudden, so bright, I thought I was dreaming for a second. Then the sirens kicked in. Sharp, warbling, way too loud after all that silence. The guy inside the RV spun around. His body hit the little table, knocked over a cup, and he took off, ran straight out the back door. I lunged forward, slammed the hatch shut behind him, and locked it again. My hands were shaking so hard I missed the latch twice. Mia stood up fast, wild-eyed, clutching the pepper spray like she still wasn't sure if it was over. She kept asking, "Are they gone? Is he out?" I couldn't answer her. I honestly didn't know. Outside, we heard shouting, male voices, more than one, feet pounding against dirt and leaves. Then a gunshot, just one, echoing through the trees. I don't even know if it hit anyone. I don't think so. I crept to the front of the RV and cracked the curtain. 2 sheriff's trucks were there that had angled on the dirt road with their lights flashing. At least 4 deputies had jumped out, and one of them was chasing someone into the woods with a flashlight bouncing wildly ahead of him. Another guy, probably the one who broke in, was gone, just disappeared into the tree line. But one of them didn't make it. He tried to run through a fence line about 100 yards back and got caught up in it, barbed wire strung between some old rotted posts. The deputy had him pinned to the ground within seconds. They cuffed him and walked him back past the fire pit where our chairs were still sitting, totally untouched. The man they caught was maybe early 30s, tall, white, wearing some kind of cheap hunting jacket and jeans caked in mud. His face was blank, like none of this was strange to him. He didn't say a word. One of the deputies stayed with us while the others cleared the area. They swept through the woods in teams, looking for the woman and the other man, but they never found them. The deputy said this wasn't the first report they'd gotten from Timber Hollow, just the first one where anyone had stuck around long enough to ID a suspect. Apparently, this group, or a group like them, had been targeting isolated campers in the area for a few months. Always at night, always using a distraction. Sometimes a woman, sometimes not. Sometimes someone hurt. Sometimes just a noise, a car alarm, a scream, something to make people open their doors or step outside. Once they did, that was it. Robbery, the deputy guessed. Maybe more. No one had ever gotten a clear look before. We were the first ones who didn't run or who had a signal long enough to get help out there. They never found the woman. They never even got her on trail cam. Just a barefoot stranger knocking in the night. We left the next morning. Didn't even make coffee. I barely managed to pull the RV out of the clearing without stalling. Mia didn't speak for most of the drive. Neither did I. Once we hit real pavement again, I started breathing normal for the first time in hours. We dropped the RV off 2 days early. We don't really talk about Timber Hollow anymore, but every now and then I still find myself checking the locks, just in case. I've always been a solitary traveler. Something about being on the road by myself, seeing the world through the lens of my camera, just makes sense. My name's Evan, and for the last 5 years, I've been working as a freelance photographer. Most of the time, I take photos of the ordinary stuff that often gets overlooked. Abandoned buildings, old fences, small towns with stories to tell. It's the kind of work where I don't need a lot of company. The silence of the open road is often my best companion. So when I set out for this trip through Texas, I was looking forward to the solitude. Texas, especially out on the back roads, is vast and empty. The land seems to stretch forever, with only the occasional farm or lone ranch house breaking up the horizon. I'd been on the road all day, snapping pictures of the worn-out barns and old rusty cars that dotted the landscape. I didn't have a set destination in mind, just following the curves of the back roads, the ones less traveled. I was chasing that perfect shot, the one that tells a story without words. By the time the sun started dipping below the horizon, I was looking for a place to pull over for the night. I didn't want to stop in a crowded RV park or anything too busy, just a quiet spot where I could rest, maybe take a few more pictures as the stars came out. So I plugged in the GPS and looked for the nearest campground. At first, everything seemed fine. I was on my way, making my way down one of those dirt roads that doesn't show up on most maps. The trees were sparse out here, and the land was dry, almost desolate. But it wasn't uncomfortable. There's something about that isolation, the quiet hum of the engine in my RV that I find peaceful. The GPS started to glitch a little bit. It wasn't anything too major at first, just a flicker of the screen, and then it was back to normal. But then it happened again, and the next thing I knew, I was on a different road entirely. It was narrow, hardly more than a dirt path winding through sparse trees and overgrown brush. My stomach twisted a little. I knew I was off the main road, but I figured I'd just keep going. It was already late, and there wasn't another town for miles. I'd find something, even if it was just a quiet place to pull over and park for the night. It felt like I'd been driving for ages. The sky had gone dark, and the only light was the dim glow of my headlights slicing through the dusty air. The road got rougher as I went on, and I could feel the RV bouncing as the tires hit the uneven ground. I glanced at my phone. No service. The GPS was still glitching, constantly recalculating, but there was no turning back now. I wasn't worried, though. I was used to these kinds of detours. I was starting to wonder if I'd missed the campground entirely when I noticed an old, gnarly oak tree looming off to the side of the road. It was huge. Its branches twisted and gnarled like something out of a nightmare, but it looked like a good place to pull over for the night. There was a clearing under the tree, just big enough for the RV. I slowed down and turned into the clearing. The air had cooled significantly, and the evening was quiet. I could hear the faint rustling of leaves in the distance, but everything else was still. The perfect place for a quiet night, or so I thought. I got out of the RV, locking the door behind me, and stretched my legs. I grabbed my camera, thinking I might take a few pictures of the old oak, the way the moonlight was filtering through its leaves. But when I raised my camera to snap the shot, I froze. In the distance through the trees, I thought I saw a flicker of light. The headlights of a car? Maybe? But it didn't seem like it was moving. It didn't make sense. The road had been empty for miles. I squinted into the darkness, trying to make out the shape of the light, but it disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. My heart was pounding a little faster now, but I dismissed it as nothing more than my imagination running wild. I put the camera down and climbed back into the RV, locking the door behind me. It was getting late, and I had a long drive ahead the next day. I slid into bed, wrapped myself in my blanket, and let the steady hum of the RV's cooling system lull me to sleep. I woke with a start. The sound that woke me wasn't loud, but it was enough to snap me out of my sleep. It was like a scraping noise, a faint sound of something brushing up against the side of the RV. I lay there in the dark for a moment, not sure if I was hearing things. Maybe it was just a branch or some debris from the wind, but the sound didn't stop. It kept going, rhythmic and persistent. I held my breath, listening hard. Then, from the other side of the RV, I heard footsteps. Not the soft, random scurrying of an animal, but slow, deliberate steps. I couldn't help it. I slid quietly out of bed, my heart hammering in my chest. The RV was still and silent, save for the occasional creaking of the old structure settling. I moved toward the window, the floorboard creaking beneath my feet, and peered outside. I couldn't see much. The shadows from the oak tree stretched across the ground, and the night was thick with darkness. But there were two figures moving around the RV. One was crouching down by the window, tapping lightly on the glass with a finger, almost like he was testing the glass to see if it would make a sound. The other was standing by the back, trying the locked door, pulling on it, testing it again and again. My heart jumped into my throat. This wasn't right. It didn't feel like someone in trouble looking for help. This felt like something else. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand and checked it again. No service. Of course. I looked toward the front of the RV, my mind racing. The figures outside didn't make any noise, but I could hear them clearly. The rustle of their clothes, the shuffle of their feet on the dirt. Then, the man at the back of the RV tried the door handle one more time, and when it didn't open, I heard him curse under his breath. His voice was low, but it carried through the stillness. "Let us in. We need help," he called, his voice almost desperate. "Please, just let us in." I froze, staring through the blinds at them. There was something wrong about the way he said it. My breath caught in my throat. I had to do something. I couldn't just let them in. I needed to get out of there, but I couldn't let them know I was awake. I held my breath as they moved around the RV, the soft scrape of their shoes on the dirt punctuating the silence. The man at the window was tapping again, this time harder, as though he was getting impatient. The other man muttered something under his breath, but I couldn't make out the words. And then, without warning, there was a sudden, loud crash, a noise that made my blood run cold. The man at the window had smashed it with something. A crowbar, I think. I didn't even have time to react before his hand shot through the broken glass, reaching inside the RV. Panic surged through me. I had to get out of there. I grabbed the keys, fumbling as I tried to start the engine. I could barely see through the haze of panic. I heard the man's voice grow louder, his words garbled and angry as he tried to pull himself inside. I hit the gas, slamming the RV into gear. The tires spun for a moment on the loose dirt, but then the vehicle lurched forward, tearing out of the clearing. I looked in the side mirror just in time to see one of the men, clutching the side of the RV, being thrown off as the vehicle picked up speed. I didn't stop. I just kept going, the engine roaring as I barreled down the narrow road, headlights off to avoid drawing attention. The adrenaline was pumping through me, my hands still gripping the wheel as though my life depended on it, which, at that moment, it did. I didn't stop until I reached a small gas station. The clerk behind the counter looked at me wide-eyed as I staggered toward the door. "Please, help," I managed to say, my voice weak. "I need help. They tried to get inside." He immediately picked up the phone and dialed 911. It felt like hours before the police arrived, though I'm sure it was closer to 20 minutes. They took my statement quickly, and I told them everything I could remember. They asked about the attackers, but I had only seen them in the dark. No clear faces, just shadows and figures. I showed them the footage from the dash cam, which was blurry and grainy, but clear enough. The two men moving around the RV. Their figures were unmistakable, even though their faces were obscured. The police told me they'd run the footage through their systems. A few days later, they tracked them down. Two drifters, known for robbing travelers along remote roads. They had been using the same tactic for weeks, pretending to need help, luring people in, and then robbing them, sometimes violently. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't managed to escape, but I know I won't forget that night. Every time I'm driving through a dark, empty road, I feel the weight of that experience. The quiet of the night, the scraping sound on the RV, the desperation in their voices, it all stays with me. So this happened a little over a year ago, and even though nothing super dramatic happened like in the movies, it's stuck with me in a way I can't shake off. Anyway, I was on a solo road trip through Texas. No big plans, just wanted to get out of town for a while and clear my head. I just quit my job and I had a little savings saved up, so I figured I'd do something different before figuring out what came next. I was somewhere between Fort Stockton and San Angelo, probably 6 or 7 hours into the drive. I had music playing low on the old speakers, Tom Petty, I think. The air outside was just starting to cool down, but it was still that kind of heavy Texas heat where the breeze feels like it's coming from an oven. The sun was low. It was kind of beautiful, actually, but I was beat. My back was starting to cramp from sitting so long, and my eyes were that kind of tired where you keep blinking harder just to focus. I started looking for a place to stop, and that's when I saw the sign. Creekside RV Park, $20 per night, cash only. It was one of those old wooden signs with faded lettering and a busted neon light that was still half blinking, even though it was clearly past its prime. Nothing fancy. Just nailed to two crooked posts off the side of the road, next to a dirt path that led behind a little gas station with boarded up windows. I slowed down without really thinking, turned in and followed the road back. The park was really just a wide gravel lot behind the station, surrounded by patchy mesquite trees and old rusting wire fencing. There were maybe 4 or 5 other RVs, all spaced out unevenly. Some looked like they hadn't moved in a while. Sun-faded paint, flat tires, tarps over the roofs. One had a dog chained outside. The office, if you could call it that, was a tiny shed-looking building with a piece of cardboard duct taped to the door that said, "Drop $20 in the slot. No change. No checks." Underneath, in red marker, "No refunds." Charming. I parked at the far end of the lot, away from the other RVs. I liked being alone. Plus, the further I was from the office, the quieter it'd be. My rig isn't anything special. Older Class C I bought secondhand, but it does the job. I keep it clean, and the AC runs good when I fire up the generator. It was already dark by the time I got out. Not full night yet, but that deep blue kind of darkness where the sky's still hanging on to a bit of light, but everything on the ground is already shadowed. I stretched out my back, rolled my neck around, and that's when I heard him. Long drive? I didn't even hear him walk up. I turned and saw a guy standing just a few steps away, leaning slightly with one hand in his pocket and the other holding a bottle of beer. He looked like someone I'd pass by in a Walmart and forget 5 seconds later. Average build, maybe 5'10", little belly on him like he'd had a few good years of beer and burgers. He nodded toward my rig. "You headed east?" "Yeah," I said. "From El Paso." He held out the other bottle. "You look like you could use one." I hesitated. I really did. Now, I know better than to accept drinks from strangers, especially when traveling alone. But there was something casual about the way he offered it. Like, we were just two regular guys on the road trying to kill time in a nothing town. He gave a little shrug, like it was no big deal either way. So I took it. He smiled. "Rick," he said, "been staying here a few nights. It's quiet, cheap." I cracked the beer open and nodded. Quiet's good. We stood there for a while, talked about nothing. The heat, the cost of gas, some dumb story about a guy getting busted with a stolen lawnmower in Odessa. He told me he used to drive trucks, now just goes park to park. Said he lost his job after the company he worked for shut down during COVID. I told him I was between jobs too. He nodded like that made perfect sense. The whole thing lasted maybe 25-30 minutes. Then I said I was going to hit the sack. He clinked his bottle against mine lightly and said, "All right, man, sleep easy." I remember shutting the door behind me, and I know I locked it, turned the little deadbolt, checked it twice, just out of habit. But when I woke up, everything was different. I woke up wrong. That's the only way I can describe it. It wasn't like waking up from a dream or even that half-sleep state you get when you know it's almost morning. My mouth was bone dry, my throat felt like sandpaper. I had this pounding in my head, dull, heavy, like a hammer tapping right between my temples with every heartbeat. And for a minute, I didn't know where I was. The inside of the RV was pitch black. No glow from the microwave clock, no light from the ceiling fan, not even the faint hum of the generator. Just stillness, thick, suffocating quiet. I reached over to the edge of the bed and tried to flick on the lamp I keep clipped to the wall. Nothing. I blinked, sat up slowly, my head swam. It was a sluggish, dizzy kind of movement, like being underwater. I sat there for a second, rubbing my eyes and trying to get my bearings. Then I noticed the door. It was wide open, not just unlocked, open. The night air drifted in like a slow exhale. The door was swinging gently on its hinges, creaking soft back and forth. I felt this tight, cold feeling in my chest, like everything inside me pulled in all at once. I always lock the door, always, especially when I'm alone, especially when I'm parked somewhere like this. My heart started thumping faster. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed and stood up too fast. My vision blurred a little. I had to steady myself on the counter. That's when I noticed the cabinet door above the sink was open. I keep my wallet there when I'm driving, tucked in a little black pouch with a zipper. It's always in the same spot, right next to the pack of emergency cash I keep folded under some maps. But now the cabinet was empty. I blinked a few times, opened the others. Nothing. My phone, gone. My keys, gone. The little tray by the door where I throw my loose change and pocket knife, wiped clean. I checked the drawers. Empty. Glove box, unlocked and wide open. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. It wasn't like I'd been robbed, not in the usual way. No broken windows, no forced entry, no signs of a struggle. It was quiet, clean, surgical, like someone had taken their time. I stepped outside, barefoot, gravel biting into my feet. The sky was this dark navy blue now, full of stars. There were no sounds, no barking dogs, no humming generators, no crickets, just silence. Total and absolute. Then I looked toward Rick's camper, or where it had been, gone. I actually walked toward the spot, thinking maybe I'd gotten turned around in the dark. But no, there were tire tracks. Fresh ones. Still sharp in the gravel. I looked around at the other RVs. Still there, still parked, but closed up, curtains drawn. Not a single light on. I didn't know what to do. My hands were shaking. Not from fear exactly, just this kind of numb panic. That feeling when something really bad has happened, but your brain hasn't caught up to it yet. I ran back inside and opened every drawer, every cabinet, half thinking maybe my phone had fallen. Maybe I'd misplaced it. Maybe I'd dropped the keys in the bathroom. But I knew. Somebody had been inside while I was asleep. That thought hit me like a cold gust of wind. I sat down on the little bench seat near the kitchenette and stared at the open door. My head still throbbed. Something wasn't right. The beer. That one beer. I started wondering if he'd slipped something in it. I hadn't even finished the whole thing. Just drank half while we were talking. But it was enough. Enough to knock me out. Long enough for him to come in, move around, take what he wanted, and leave. I got up, pulled on my boots without socks, and walked down the gravel path back toward the gas station. The building was closed and dark, just like earlier. There was a payphone attached to the side wall near the vending machines. I picked it up, got a dial tone. Somehow, I called 911. I didn't even know what to say at first. My voice came out hoarse and shaky. Eventually, they said someone would be out to check on me. I sat down on the curb and just waited. The gravel pressed into the back of my legs. A deputy showed up maybe 20 minutes later, cruiser headlights cutting through the dark like searchlights. He was older. When I told him what happened, he listened quiet, asked a few questions, jotted things down in a little notepad. Then he said, "You're not the first." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice sounding small. He sighed, looked down at his notebook. "Past few months," he said, "we've had a handful of similar calls. Always RV travelers, always alone, waking up with things missing. Some lose phones, wallets, others lose whole rigs. We even had one guy wake up in the back of his own truck, halfway to the next county, no recollection of how he got there." I felt this chill go down my back. I shivered. "Same guy?" I asked. The deputy nodded slowly. "We think so. Goes by different names. Friendly type, offers you a beer, maybe a smoke, gains your trust, then waits." I didn't say anything. I just kept staring at the empty spot where Rick's camper had been. Those tire tracks. The deputy gave me a ride into town, which was barely more than a gas station, a diner, and a sad little motel with 2 working rooms. He dropped me off and said someone would be in touch if they found anything. That night in the motel, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see the image of the RV door creaking open, or imagine someone standing over me while I was passed out, just watching, breathing, maybe waiting to see if I'd wake up. That was the part that messed with me the most. It's one thing to get robbed. It's another to know someone stood just a few feet away from you while you were unconscious, rummaging through your things. A week later, I got a call from the same deputy. His name was Wheeler. Officer Wheeler. They caught him. Rick, or whatever his real name was, got picked up 40 miles south of where I'd stayed at another ragged RV park near a town called Big Lake. Same setup, same routine. He was chatting up some guy from Kansas who got suspicious and reported it before anything could happen. When they searched his camper, they found all kinds of stolen stuff. Phones, wallets, laptops, credit cards. They couldn't recover everything. My phone was gone, probably sold or smashed, my spare keys too. But getting that wallet back, I don't know. It felt strange. Wheeler told me the guy had multiple IDs under different names. One of them was Rick, another was David something. All fakes. Apparently he'd done this kind of thing in at least 3 different states, always stuck to remote RV parks, places with cash boxes and no cameras. I asked what would happen to him. "Depends on what sticks," Wheeler said, "but he won't be out anytime soon." I still travel. Still take long drives. I check locks 3 times now. I keep a small camera mounted on the back window of my rig, records on a loop. I carry pepper spray next to my bed, and I don't talk to strangers anymore, not unless I absolutely have to. That's it for today's tale from Shivering Vault. If you have a story worth sharing, drop it in the comments or send it our way. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your fellow thrill seekers. As always, the Shivering Vault thanks you for unlocking today's tale. Until next time, the vault awaits your return.